Patch 13.6 is here, so it's time to have a look at all the strongest comps you can play. So this patch brought a bunch of changes and revived a ton of comps that were super strong towards the start of the set. So let's get into the new stuff, the old stuff, and all the best comps you should try to climb the ranks before set 14 comes along in April. And first up, let's talk about Zeri Reroll. And she's had a great set to say the least, but now with the Watcher and Sniper buffs, it's easy to see why she's right back up there with the best. Now you can play Zeri with a full Watcher frontline and 3-star her, Cogmore and Scar to see some pretty amazing results. Especially if you can make it to level 9 to add in another unit like Echo and grab yourself a spatula to activate 4 firelights. But the great thing about Zeri is if Watchers are being heavily contested, you can actually also play Zeri alongside Sentinels. In this setup, you'll still be rolling for Zeri 3 of course, but also as many Sentinels as you can, with Singed and Rel being the main priority. You can then use Maddie as your secondary sniper carry or swap her out for Caitlyn later if you don't 3-star her. Either way though, if you are playing Zeri, her best items are essential, and the two most important ones are Rageblade and Gunblade. These ensure she ramps up and scales up throughout fights, but also heals up her tanky frontline at the same time. After that, it does get pretty flexible, so go for a second Rageblade or Infinity Edge or Deathblade. For tanks in either comp, you can slam whatever the game gives you, but make sure you have some anti-heal with a Sunfire and maybe some Shred with an Evan Shroud. For secondary carries, if you're playing Watchers with Cogmore, you can dump any AP items onto him, but he also ideally wants a Rageblade along with Archangels, and then any third item like Shiv, another Rageblade or Gunblade. If you're playing Sentinels, you can also itemize Maddie or Caitlyn with any leftover AD. For augments here, you can go for reroll augments like Starry Night or Heroic Grab Bag, item augments like Radiant Refractor to get a Radiant Rageblade, or Anger Issues for tons of Rageblades too. And of course, you can also look out for Firelight augments to help you increase the ceiling of the Watcher comp. As an extra note, if you see the Vi encounter which gives you 2 component anvils, this can help you out by getting an easy Rageblade early on. Now for anomalies, we don't really want to go into too many details because we'll be here all day, aside from the fact that you do want to aim for Zeri or one of your main tanks. But if you want to see our recommendations for these, you can see them in more detail on our team comps pages or even in-game with our overlay, so check those out by clicking the link below. So as you probably already guessed by the previous comp, Watchers are looking super strong. And that brings us to our next comp, which is 2 different comps in one, with the Vander Hero Augment Gloves Off or the Vladimir Hero Augment Crimson Pact. Let's start with Vander first, and his hero augment turns him into a powerful punching monster that will literally beat up entire enemy boards. With this augment, you want to build around family early on and 3-star these 3 family units before adding in Watchers as the game progresses. The main focus here is going to be itemizing your Vander with his best options, which are the combo of IE and Hand of Justice, and then a BT for some extra sustain. You can slam any extra melee hybrid items onto Violet, any AP onto Powder, and then as much HP as possible onto Garen later on, to boost up your Vander with extra health. The comp is pretty simple to follow, but it is super strong once everything comes together. Other augments to look out for after the hero one of course are family emblems, reroll augments again like Starry Night or Prismatic Ticket, combat augments like Inspiring Epitaph, oh and definitely make sure you anomaly your Vander in this one. Next up we have our Watcher's Vladimir comp, which is also based around his hero augment Crimson Pact. Now in this comp you're definitely going to want to 3-star him, but also Vander and Tristana at the same time if you can, before then pushing levels to add in the emissary units and activating 4 Watchers. Vlad's best items will be similar to units like Cogmore with ramping attack speed and AP, and of course a Gunblade to heal his frontline. For your secondary carry Tristana, she also wants a Rageblade and a Gunblade alongside something else like an Infinity Edge, and if you get her in early on, she can scale up to bring a ton of extra damage with those stacks. After that, it's just about itemizing your frontline, so if you 3-starred Vander, gear him up with big tank items and Garen with tons of belts. For augments, you can go for reroll ones like Too Much Value or Team Building. Pandora's items too can also be great, as you'll need those specific items to make your Vladimir pop off, or strong combat augments like Pumping Up or Blazing Soul. Before we do move on, we do want to say that Watchers are looking like they're some of the most contested units in the game so far this patch. So if you do want to play any of these comps we've just spoken about, make sure you're ready for that. Next up we have the Quickstrikers, who were already a little bit sleeper OP last patch, but now even better. And you can play Quickstrikers with a Sentinels or Automata setup based on a few different conditions, but this main comp we'll cover here today is with Sentinels, because it's definitely the most consistent variation. The focus here is going to be 3-starring our Twisted Fate as our main carry and Loris as our main tank at level 7, but you do have a bunch of other secondary carry options depending on what the game offers you. First up, TF wants things like Shojin, Archangels and Dual Gauntlets if you can. Then we have the other Quickstrikers, Akali and Nocturne, which can be great if you manage to 3-star them, and Ambessa can be a solid late game option as well. If you get a ranged artifact weapon like Rapid Fire Cannon or Sniper's Focus, you can slam these onto Nocturne alongside items like Hodge or BT. Akali is the other 2-cost option that you'll be able to itemize here, and she works best with a BT, Titans and Jeweled Gauntlet. Then of course we have the final Quickstriker 4-cost unit Ambessa, who can be a great leftover AD item slam option if you 2-star her later on. There is also one other option, and that's using Cogmore with a Quickstriker emblem, but it does follow a bit of a different setup where we can lean more into an automata focus with an emblem onto Ambessa. And these conditions are pretty complicated and pretty difficult to hit, so the standard variation is definitely much more consistent. Finally, for tank items, Loris is going to be your main tank in the Center Strikers comp, and you can slam all sorts of flexible tank items onto him, like Sunfire, Redemption or Warmogs, or of course Ionic Spark if you need the shred. For augments, you can go for options like Trifecta to boost up your 3-cost carries, or Rigged Shop to help you hit them easier too. Then there's the Quickstriker specific augment Adrenaline Burst, which is crazy strong and should help you streak pretty hard throughout all stages of the game. Plus, don't forget about Blazing Soul either, because attack speed and AP on TF is just what he loves best. Moving on then, and next up we have the Family and Pit Fighter comp, because yes, they have returned up to the S tier this week, and now it's back in an amazing spot again. This comp runs with the 3 family units Vander, Violet and Powder, as well as the Conqueror duo of Draven and Darius, which are all 1 to 2 cost units that you want to 3-star. Your early carries will be Draven and Violet, and Vander will be your main tank, and then you can slam any leftover AP onto Powder and leftover AD onto Vi later on. Draven is dealing a lot of damage this patch, and his best in slot is going to be a Rageblade and a Last Whisper, followed by a third item like a Deathblade or a Runart. Violet wants those Vita items like Sterax, Edge of Night, and ideally an artifact in Trenchcoat, but you can slam other items like Hodge and IE, BT Titans, or even Mittens if you don't hit the right artifact. For Vander, you can slam all of your leftover tank items, with belts being your best bet with items like Warmogs and Redemption. So for augments, you're mainly going to be obviously looking out for those family emblems as well as pit fighter emblems too. But if you manage to hit 2 family emblems throughout the game, you're going to be seriously hard to beat. Plus, you can then even aim for the 6th family Easter egg by placing the emblems onto Vi, Jinx and Warwick, which will start them up every single round. You can see here from this footage that I had 6 family, but unfortunately I couldn't find a Warwick to win the game. Sad times. Aside from emblems, you can go for reroll augments like Starry Night to help 3-star your board, Missed Connections for all the 1-cost units, or even Prismatic Tickets for tons of rerolls. There's also the family specific augment called Welcome to the Playground, which gives you extra copies of your family units along the way. Artifact item augments can also be fantastic here, but don't forget about Superstars or No Scout No Pivot, which both make this board a hell of a lot stronger. Moving on to our final new S tier choice today, and that's going to be the Form Swappers. Now the buffs have really brought these back into action, and there's a few ways we can play them. First up, there's our Boats and Crows comp, which slow rolls at level 7 to 3-star Swain and Gangplank before pushing levels to find and add in Jace and Elise, as well as the emissary units to complete your board. In this comp, Gangplank will want 3 solid strong items like Shojin, Infinity Edge and Last Whisper, and Swain is going to be your main tank with items like Crown Guard, Bramble Vest and Gargoyle Stoneplate. When playing Form Swappers emissaries, you want to focus on augments that help you hit those Swain and Gangplank copies sooner and easier without losing out on too much tempo. So go for any reroll augments like Heroic Grab Bags, Rigged Shop or Prismatic Ticket. Then there's also Trifecta to boost up those 2 carries, or just generally strong augments that play around a level 7 slow roll comp like Coronation, Max Cap, or combat augments like Mace's Will or Thorn Plated Armor. The other way to play Form Swappers though is to play around Conqueror instead, and in this version you want to actually look for a Conqueror emblem onto your Gangplank to then activate 6 Conqueror and 4 Form Swapper in the late game, which will make you insanely strong and give you tons of amazing rewards from those Conqueror cash outs. Here you'll also be using Swain as your main tank, as well as Ambessa or Mordekaiser as late game damage carries. Now in this comp variation, you definitely want to focus on Conqueror augments like a +1 emblem, or the Noxian Guillotine augment, or just any strong economy augments to help you push levels faster to find and 2-star all of your Conquerors and Form Swappers. So there's some of the strongest new or returning S tier comps to play, but what about all the other strong comps too? Well, Bruiser Twitch is definitely back on the menu as well after his buffs and the buffs to Sniper, so check out Experiment 626 on our site for that one. You can play him with a Bruiser lineup or even a full Experiment team instead. There's also plenty of popular comps from last patch or recent patches that are still incredibly strong too, like Vertical Rebels with Jinx, Zoe and Alawi, Ambushers with Echo and Smeech popping off and diving backlines, Enforcers capping out super hard with Caitlyn, and of course Academy Heimerdinger, which has been a really consistent comp all set. Sorcerers and Scrap both did get some nerfs, but are still holding up pretty well so far too. So if you do enjoy these comps, you can definitely still play them. Now we've added links to all of the comps in this video in the description below, so check them out and let us know how you guys get on. But that's going to bring us to the end of our rundown of all the strongest comps you can play in patch 13.6. There's not too much time left to grind out those ranks this set before we start all over again in set 14, so lock in and make sure you have some fun along the way. Thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one. Take care.